investigation, solving mysteries in the night. Chasing shadows, finding answers, shining bright light. No one's left behind in the darkness, all alone. With a heart like a siren, she brings the lost ones home. Silent cries in the dark no longer have to be, for justice wheels keep turning, Granny on the beat. Broken voices find their power, call out hope again. When these crime busters ride, no victims left in pain. Bravery in her veins, truth she won't disguise. With a fire in her eyes, she's got nothing to deny. Granny fights for justice, never backs down from the call. For the voiceless and the missing, she'll stand tall.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful day. I decided to do a video on a case that I followed quite a while back. And the perpetrator is just now heading to court for his crime. Before we get started on that, I'm going to go ahead and share a spotlight on the missing with Granny. If my thing will work with me here. And yes, it's not going to. All right. Huh. Interesting. Gotta love technology, right? There we go. All right. So our first missing teenager is Lakeith Millbrook Jr. He has been missing since January 27, 2025. He was last seen in Memphis. He's 15 years old, 5 feet 4 inches tall, 122 pounds, black hair, and blue eyes. Oh, actually, he has brown eyes. Sorry about that, guys. That's an error on my part. If anyone knows where Lakeith might be, please call 911, the Memphis Police Department, or 1-800-TBI-FIND. Our next one is Xenia. I think that's how you say her name, Pafford. Xenia has been missing since April 1st, guys, just a little over a month. Last seen in Kingsport, 15 years old, 5 feet 4 inches tall, 120 pounds, black hair, and blue eyes. If anyone knows where Xenia is or anything about her disappearance, please call Kingsport Police Department, 911, or 1-800-TBI-FIND. Thanks, guys. All right, let's get started. We are actually going to talk about Ana Walshe. This is Ana, beautiful young lady, beautiful. And this is her and her husband, Brian Walshe. Happier times. They had 3 young sons together. So Ana was born in Belgrade, Serbia, Yugoslavia in 1983. She was raised in Belgrade, where she attended the 5th Belgrade Gymnasium and obtained a bachelor's degree in French language and literature from the University of Belgrade. She emigrated to the United States in 2005, eventually becoming a dual citizen. She found work in the hospitality industry, including at the Inn at Little Washington, and she is thought to have met Brian Walshe during her 2 years working at the Wheatley Hotel in Lenox, Massachusetts. She and Brian married in 2016, and she took his surname. They subsequently had 3 sons who, at the time of her disappearance, were ages 2, 4, and 6. Now they would be 4, 6, and 8. After working at several more hotels, Ana Walshe became a regional general manager at the real estate company Tishman Speyer in February 2022, splitting her time between her home with Brian in Cohasset, Massachusetts, and a residence in Washington, D.C., where she worked. Brian, on the other hand, pleaded guilty in federal court on 3 charges of fraud relating to trying to sell counterfeit Andy Warhol works. At the time of Anna's disappearance, he was on house arrest, awaiting sentencing. On January 4th, she was reported missing by her employer and then separately by her husband, Brian Walshe. She was last seen early on January 1st in Cohasset, Massachusetts. She had had dinner with Brian and a friend of his on New Year's Eve. Brian told the police that Ana had flown to DC for a work emergency, and after an initial arrest on January 8th for misleading investigators regarding his whereabouts the day of the disappearance, Brian was charged on January 18th with red rum and disinterring a body without authority, to which he pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors alleged that he beat her to death and dismembered and disposed of her body. So that's just kind of an overview of what happened with this case. Anna's body has never been found. Brian insists he's not guilty. And now his defense is trying to get his Google searches taken out of the court trial, which I believe starts in October. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. And all credit to Sidebar with Jesse Weber, Law and Crime. She's beautiful, isn't she? 39 years old. He wants his damning search history tossed. I really want to know what you guys think. I want to know if you think that this should be tossed, or because remember, we don't have a body. Okay. All right, let's get started.
Walshe never returned home from a supposed work trip at the beginning of 2023. Her husband, Brian Walshe, became a suspect in her disappearance. Within days, he would be under arrest, accused of not only killing Ana, but of dismembering her. And law enforcement in Cohasset, Massachusetts says Walsh's own internet search history could put him behind bars for a very long time. But now Walsh's defense team is trying to have that evidence tossed out before Walshe goes to trial in front of a jury. And I got to give you a little bit of backstory here to understand why this is so big. So Ana, who's originally from Serbia, lived in Cohasset, Massachusetts with her husband, Brian, and their 3 children. She worked in Washington, D.C., commuted back and forth. The family had reportedly celebrated New Year's Eve with a family friend when she was allegedly called to a work emergency on New Year's Day, and she was never seen again. When she stopped showing up for work, her employer was the one who actually first reported her missing. So then an officer went to the Walshe home to perform a wellness check, and her husband said he hadn't heard from her since she left for DC. And that is when disturbing details started to emerge, because Walshe apparently made several disturbing Google searches, which led police to believe Ana was dead. Law enforcement also discovered that Walshe had lied to them about where he'd been in the days between January 1st, when Ana was reportedly last seen, and January 4th, when Cohasset police performed that wellness check. Walshe was arrested on January 18th, and despite Ana's body never being found, he was indicted on charges of murder, misleading a police investigation, and improper conveyance of a human body, meaning police believe that Walshe somehow disposed of Ana once she was dead. And during an early court hearing back in 2023, the prosecutor read some of those internet searches that Walshe had apparently made after Ana's disappearance, read them aloud for the court. A doozy, to say the least.
What I'd like to do now is just describe his actions in the days from January 1st. Defendant indicated on January 1st at 3 p.m. he did some errands and went to his mother's house in Swampscott, but got lost because he didn't have his phone. He said he knew he was lost when he saw the pirate ship on Route 1. Defendant stayed 15 minutes, then went to Whole Foods and CVS. Surveillance was checked and he did not enter either of those stores. On January 1st, defendant Googled using his son's iPad. Some of his searches are as follows. Keep in mind that the defendant said he left at 6 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose of a dead body if you really need to. At 6:25 a.m. on the 1st, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. At 6:34 a.m. on the 1st, can you throw away body parts? At 9:29 a.m., what does formaldehyde do? At 9:34 a.m. on the 1st, how long does DNA last? At 9:59 a.m., can identification be made on partial remains? At 11:34 a.m., dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. At 11:44, how to clean blood from wooden floor. At 11:56 on the 1st, luminol to detect blood. At 1:08, what happens when you put body parts in ammonia? At 1:21 p.m., is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Those are on the January 1st. There was also information gained from the defendant's phone, which showed on January 2nd, he was at Home Goods in Norwell, where he purchased 3 rugs. There were also more Google searches on January 2nd. At 12:45 p.m., hacksaw best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged with murder without a body? At 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body with broken teeth?
Such damning information, such damning evidence. And according to
Can you identify a body with broken teeth? Guys, this is sick. This man is sick. You know, and keep in mind, wherever he put her body, it has not been found. He's not talking. I don't believe he ever will. Maybe after spending years in jail. I mean, I don't know if he'll ever talk about it. Their children went into the system because neither one of them had family. Anna's mom lives in Serbia. So, and last I heard, she was attempting, to try to get custody of the children, but that, you're talking between countries dealing with this, right? So, those poor kids, right? Those poor kids have no one. They've lost both their mom and their father in that short period of time. Not that, in my opinion, losing their father was a big deal, but to them, possibly, right? And we know that he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And he did use his son's iPad to do these searches, but his son was 6 years old at the time. What would he know about Googling how to dismember a body? What is the best tool to use to dismember a body? Luminol for blood. Is it better to wash crime scene clothes or to throw them away? I mean, a 6-year-old would not know these things, guys. 6-year-old would not know these things.
To an affidavit of probable cause, Walsh was also spotted on a surveillance camera at Home Depot. This apparently was a shopping trip that he never mentioned to police. The affidavit indicates he was wearing a black surgical mask and blue surgical gloves and
making a cash purchase. But one of the things that Jesse did was click out of this right away, but I wanted to bring up the last sentence. This trip was made in violation of his probation conditions during the time he is allotted to pick up his kids from school. He was only allowed to go certain places. He was under house arrest, guys, for those Andy Warhol pictures that he tried to sell, fake ones that he tried to sell. So not only was he buying things that I guess it was a lot of cleaning items, but he was also in violation of his probation while he was doing this.
a cash purchase. Investigators later determined he spent $450 on things like cleaning supplies. Authorities say they found the Walshes' DNA along with a COVID vaccine card for Ana, some of her clothes, a hacksaw, cutting shears, and a hatchet in trash bags in a dumpster, apparently across the street from Walsh's mother's condo complex. In fact, the surveillance photo was discovered from January 3rd showing someone wearing a face mask throwing away what appeared to be heavy bags. And then a bloody, damaged knife was also reportedly found in the basement of the Walsh home. Now, despite all this apparent evidence, Walsh has entered a not guilty plea. He's been behind bars with no bail ever since. He faces life in prison if he's convicted. But now we got to talk about what's happening. Okay, so with Walsh's trial that's expected to start in October, his defense team, and arguably one of their best moves that they should be doing, is to make sure as little of this evidence comes into trial and the jury doesn't see it, right? So his defense team is trying to get some of the evidence in this case thrown out, including the electronic device extraction that uncovered those chilling, eerie Google searches. So you had a 2-day evidentiary hearing that was held this week with the prosecution and the defense making arguments in front of a judge. So several investigators who worked on Ana Walshe's missing person case and subsequently her murder investigation, they were called to testify. And according to Cohasset Police, Ana was last seen at work on December 29th, then last seen by the family friend at the New Year's Eve get-together. Walsh had apparently told police that Ana had got up early to travel to D.C. for this apparent work emergency, saying she took an Uber or a Lyft to the airport like usual. But despite that being Walsh's story, an officer testified that her cell phone last pinged the following day, January 2nd, 2023, around 3 in the morning, a quarter mile from the Walsh home. Investigators also discovered that the airline that Ana supposedly used, no record of her flying to or from D.C. Officer Gregory Lawrence was the first to interact with Walsh and updated the court on how the investigation even got started.
Who did you meet there at that residence?
Brian Walsh.
Can you explain to me what happened when you got to the house that day?
I exited my cruiser and he met me at the doorway and said that he wanted to report his wife missing and file a police report with the Cohasset Police.
And what was his demeanor like when you saw him at the doorway?
Very calm.
Now, this initial interaction with Mr. Walsh, was it recorded?
No, it was not.
Why wasn't it recorded?
Cohasset Police did not have body-worn cameras at that time.
And so what had he told you he had done to try and locate his wife at this point in time?
He told me that he had tried texting her and he did contact his employer, her employer.
And what did he tell you as far as the last time he had seen his wife?
It would be Sunday morning, January 1st, 2023, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Did he say where she was going after that point?
She had a work emergency and had to go back to Washington, D.C.
Did he say how she was going to leave the home that day?
She was going to take either an Uber or a Lyft.
And head to where, sir?
Logan Airport.
Sergeant Harrison Schmidt was next to take the stand, and he explained that he was involved in coordinating a search for Ana and went to the Walsh home on the evening of January 4th to do an interview with Brian Walsh. And at this point, this is still a missing persons case, okay? So Sergeant Schmidt told the court that he and another officer walked around the home with Walsh looking for anything that might point to how or why Ana had gone missing. And Sergeant Schmidt testified that while they didn't search the attic at the time, they did do a search of the backyard pool, which the sergeant said was uncovered and full of water despite it being January. The fire department even helped shine spotlights into the pool. They even drained it, thinking maybe Ana had, fallen in somehow, but they didn't find anything. So back to Sergeant Schmidt. He also noted something odd about a Volvo at the home.
What car did you look at?
There's a Volvo XC90.
And did you get any permission to look at that car?
Yes,
And who'd you get the permission from?
Mr. Walsh.
And what did you notice about the Volvo?
In the trunk, the trunk was lined with like plastic sheeting.
And so were you able to open it at this point in time?
Yes.
Now, sir, fast forwarding to January 5th, which was a Thursday, what did you do to try and locate Miss Walsh that day?
I did a lot that day.
Let me just go back for a second.
I apologize.
There was I'll do this from time to time. There was a plastic sheet, you said lining the rear area.
Yes.
Is that a trunk or is it more like an open area in the rear of an SUV?
The trunk area is a SUV with a hatch.
Mm-hmm.
So the trunk area, not the seating area.
Okay, thanks. Go
So
ahead.
not like a sedan, though, which would have a separate, distinct trunk. It has access to the seats.
Correct. If the seats would fold down, you could go from the trunk into the back row.
Okay.
So I'll call it a traditional SUV configuration.
Yes,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
And we learned that during a later visit to the home, police searched the attic, but they didn't find anything suspicious. Investigators also said that the plastic liner that was originally noted as being in the rear of the SUV, that was now gone. Sergeant Schmidt told the court that investigators questioned Brian Walsh about whether Ana might have taken her own life or abandoned the family.
During that interview, what did he say that his normal contact would be with his wife, Ana Walsh, while she was working in Washington?
A daily contact.
During the interview, did you have the opportunity to ask him whether or not Ana was contemplating suicide?
Yes,
And what was his response to that?
she wouldn't do that.
What, if anything, did you say she was unhappy about?
Stress from work and distance.
And
I would say she would be unhappy about her husband trying to sell Andy Warhol paintings, fake Andy Warhol paintings to somebody for $80,000, right? Being on house arrest, possibly going to jail. She's trying to keep the family afloat. I would think that would be what she's upset about. What do you think, guys?
was he asked about extramarital affairs on either side?
Yes,
What did he say?
neither of them had extramarital affairs.
Did you ask, or was he asked on whether or not, if they had an argument the morning she left January 1?
Yes,
What was his response?
there wouldn't have been enough time that morning.
What do you say the biggest argument they had recently was?
She had a 2-week vacation scheduled, and instead of coming home, she was in Belgrade visiting her mother.
Now, did he say what was causing stress in their relationship at this point in time?
Yes,
What was causing stress?
the distance, being away from the children.
And in addition to the distance, were there any other stressors in their relationship?
Prior legal issues.
So he told you that he had another criminal matter going on?
Yes,
That's right. Walsh was already up to his neck in legal issues, this time in federal court. Back in 2021, nearly 2 years before Ana was reported missing, Walsh had entered a guilty plea to multiple fraud charges for selling 2 fake Andy Warhol paintings. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts, a buyer found a listing on eBay for 2 abstract Warhol paintings that were part of his Shadow series, and there was a photo of an invoice for the paintings with Warhol Foundation numbers and a purchase price of $240,000. The paintings were listed on eBay for $100,000. The buyer managed to get them $80,000. It's a steal. But when he got the paintings, the buyer quickly figured out they were fakes. These are the real ones. These are the fakes. He tried to contact Walsh, who at first wouldn't respond, and then made excuses for why he couldn't refund the buyer's money. So after Walsh pleaded guilty as he awaited sentencing, he was on house arrest. He was only allowed to leave the house during certain times, had to notify federal authorities if he did so, and authorities were then able to track his phone if need be to make sure he was where he was supposed to be. But Walsh claimed in the early days after his wife's disappearance, his son had hidden his phone, that he couldn't find it. So the authorities would just have to trust that he went where he said that he did, okay? And they didn't, uncovering evidence that Walsh allegedly lied about his whereabouts using things like store security video. But for the fraud case, Walsh was sentenced in 2024 to 37 months in prison for each count, ordered to pay $475,000 in restitution. But back to this evidentiary hearing, okay? I want to talk about this. So Sergeant Schmidt testified about this strange email that investigators received that was a purported ransom demand.
During this interview, did anyone ask him about the name Richard Walker?
Yes,
Who asked about Richard Walker?
Trooper DeChico.
And did he know Richard Walker?
No,
What was the significance to you at this point in time of the name Richard Walker?
I had received an email with a ransom request from an email address with the name Richard Walker.
And when had you received this email in relation to the interview that you were conducting with the defendant at this point in time on January 7th?
Before.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Sergeant, I'm showing you a copy of a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
Is that the email you received from with the name Richard Walker attached to it?
it is.
The Commonwealth would seek to have this marked as the next exhibit. It's in the binder, Your Honor, and before I try and admit it twice, it's Exhibit 9.
Thank you. Any objection?
No objection. Did you read the body of the email?
We have the so named Ana Walshe with us here. We had a deal worth $127,000. She messed up. We have her here with us, and if she doesn't pay the money, then she'll never be back. And we know that the police and the FBI are involved. Good luck finding us.
I may have that back, sir. Besides Trooper DeChico mentioning that name once, was there any further discussion of Richard Walker or the substance or even the substance of the email?
No.
According to police, they were suspicious of this ransom demand because it didn't mention anything about where to send the money or even a deadline to do it. Massachusetts State Police, they were also involved in the Walsh investigation. And you had Sergeant Yuri Buchanik testified that he spoke with Walsh's mother, Diana, who said her son had looked into hiring a private investigator to find Ana. And the trooper also spoke with the eldest child, who was 6 at the time, about the last time he saw his mother.
What did the oldest child tell you about about what he remembers as the last time he saw his mother, Ana Walshe?
What the child stated was that the last time he saw his mother was surrounded around the events of him hearing a noise, waking up, coming downstairs, and seeing her on the couch underneath his blanket, which he left in the room overnight. She was dressed in a set of pink pajamas with red hearts. And as he was walking by the kitchen island, he saw his iPad. He picked up the iPad, recognized that it was malfunctioning or broken, not working properly, and he requested that his mom, Ana, fix the iPad for him. Once she fixed the iPad, he indicated that Ana went upstairs and changed into her real clothes, returning back downstairs, holding a brown duffel bag, approximately 2 feet in length, and a purse, which he gestured to her wearing on her shoulder. He then stated that her taxi was here. He told her, "I love you." She responded, "I love you more." And she walked out the door to her ride. When asked if he saw the vehicle, saw the headlights for the vehicle, or saw her get into the vehicle, he stated he did not. Those are strictly his speculations. Obviously, he didn't use the word speculation, but
And how did the conversation end with the oldest child?
I had a question for him asking, does he know where his mom, before I was able to finish that question, Diana became animated with her arms as he was sitting on her lap, flailing her arms in the air. I stopped abruptly, being interrupted by her gesture. She finished the question for me, stating cell phone. The child never answered my intended question, which was if he knew where his mom was, nor the question that Diana finished. He strictly said that mom wanted him to move to DC to be with her. He abruptly got up off of Diana's lap and ran into a different portion of the home.
And did you have any further conversation with the oldest child?
Yes, I did.
And what was that, sir?
At one point, a little bit later on, he returned to the area where myself and Detective Lopes was standing. He opened the door slightly, just wide enough to the basement that he could fit through. He took a step onto the first step going down into the basement, looked back at me, extended his arm, and I told him that he shouldn't go into the basement on his own, realizing there were child locks on the door. Then Diana also opened the door all the way and grabbed his hand and told him not to go down there.
That is so chilling, given that police said they later discovered blood and a damaged knife down in the basement.
This breaks my heart, guys. It sounds like the child knew something. He was going to go in that basement. I don't know. It's just very, very sad, isn't it? To think that these children might have seen or heard something, right? And she's gone. She's just gone from their lives. It sounds to me like there was a little bit more going on, that she maybe wanted to move the children to DC with her. Brian wasn't having it. He was on house arrest. She was probably paying all the bills for that house, guys. So, I mean, just a lot going on there. I do have the link to this video in the description of my video today. If you're wanting to watch the rest of this, I will be following this because I am curious if it will ever come out that where Anna, might be. Kind of sounds like maybe she'll never be found, which is very, very sad. But I am hoping for justice in this case. As far as Brian's mom, Diana, from what I remember, she's too old to be able to take care of the children. Not able to, or something like that, and that's why they went into the system. And that Anna's mom was trying to get custody, but she's in Serbia, so I mean that a lot of red tape there. So not sure what's going to happen there as well. But very sad case, guys. Very sad case. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the Suzanne Simpson case, which her husband has been charged with taking her life as well. There was a fight seen by a neighbor, and her DNA was found on a chainsaw, and her body never found as of yet. And her husband, Brad Simpson, is facing charges for taking her life as well. So very similar, right? Do not understand. I do have my grannyism for today. Red rummers are not monsters. They are men. And that is the most frightening thing about them, right? Because women don't seek out red rummers to marry and to have children with. They seek men. I'm sure that Ana never thought that Brian would hurt her or harm her. Because if she did, she would have never married him. She wouldn't have had 3 children with him. So they are men. And that is the most frightening thing. They're people like you and me. But there's a dark side, isn't there? Really, really sad. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everyone that's watching this today. Guys, please hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe and the notification bell change to all so that you are notified when we do go live, which is most nights about 5 p.m. Central Time. We're building an incredible community, one that's safe and free of hate, and free of hate and all that kind of garbage, right? We'd love to have you with us. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching another episode of Granny's Crime Busters. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like and even share the content. You can follow us on any of our other social media platforms at YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We really appreciate you guys, and you can also email us at grannyscrimebusters@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.